you go back to the starting time of 1970, there were a lot of things that were changing. Agriculture, the economics of agriculture were booming at that time. Agriculture was changing. Also involved in that time was that there was a trend of local farm wells being contaminated with nitrates and bacteria, and the local FFA chapter at that time had a project where they would come to the farmer's place and take a sample of their well water, take it to town and test it. And a lot of times the test came back that the water wasn't fit to drink for human consumption, maybe not so much for the adults, but if there were babies in the house or young children. So there were incentives to establish rural water systems.
Before rural water, we had a windmill, a cistern, and then we had another well with a gas motor on it with a pump. And of course, when the wind didn't blow, well, then you had to go down and prime the gas motor and get it running and put about a quart or so of gas in so it would run and pump into the cistern. But when we got rural water, well, that took care of all of our problems, and we could expand our livestock program, which we did, lived happily ever after. We kind of forget about what it was like before.
Our wells were located in a bluegrass pasture. The quality of our water was great, but the quantity wasn't there. And as we build up our livestock operation, we basically run out of water. So I remember one winter when we had to haul water, and if you've ever attempted to haul water when it's 20 below zero in the wintertime to livestock, you can't realize how much water livestock can drink. It's something that nobody wants to do, and you would do a lot of things to try and solve that problem.
I would pass people, farmers, and they were hauling big tanks of water around all the time because that was the only way they could get water to their land and stuff. And so most of them were pretty happy. The people who were hauling water, they were ecstatic that we were going to come and put a water system right on their land so they wouldn't have to do that anymore, because it was that was a heck of a chore, and also it was dangerous, pulling big tanks of water around and stuff like that. So most people, I think, were satisfied that they had nice, clean water.
The system actually became incorporated in 1970, but there was work prior to that. There was a thought by some visionary people, all farmers locally here, that had the idea of providing a clean, safe, dependable supply of water out in the rural area. Probably the driving force of West Central Iowa Rural Water was, without a doubt, Ray Ehlers. Ray was a founder. He was the first president. He did a tremendous amount of things for the association. Once they became incorporated, then that necessitated a need for a board of directors.
Part of those directors were Ron Fromm, Bob Barsby, Robert Dappin, Ivan Opperman, Bob Phillips, and Lester Jones. Also a noteworthy board member is Ray Wilhoit. He was on at the beginning of time with the Boyer system and is still on our board. Ray has also served West Central on the Iowa Rural Water Board of Directors.
And those people, as we went from being incorporated to getting to the point of laying pipe, I can't imagine the countless hours that they put in. So much research had to be done. What's it going to take to do this? And then the mechanics of getting it done. They had to look at, number one, before you do anything, you have to decide, okay, where's my water supply going to be? So you do test wells to find that. Once you determine that, okay, now where's our treatment plant going to be? It needs to be in close proximity to that. So then the mechanics of those things going together and getting those wells drilled, the treatment plant built, and then at the same time, people were defining their interest. They went out, they knocked on doors. Would you be interested in rural water? And it was something new. People were very reluctant to tie into something like this because they'd never heard of it before. The concept of running pipes throughout the countryside was something that just wasn't done. The city people have been doing it for years, but the rural area never had done that before.
it wasn't easy to convince people, and it wasn't easy to convince people that it would be a success.
Rural water was still kind of a new concept, and the thought process was, we have our well, we don't have to pay for it, why would we want to buy?
Yeah, who pays for water? It's free.
Exactly,
Yeah, that was the concept.
It was new and people were pretty apprehensive of this deal about, it's not gonna work. Why would you wanna buy water? I can't understand how you guys can pump water from here to Timbuktu and this and that, and go through the land and what are we gonna do about our crops that's in there, and you're gonna tear them up, and it's on and on and on and on and on. And so there was questions that came up that we really didn't know all the answers there at that time either.
As far as convincing customers to hook up to rural water, at first, there was a lot of pushback. One prospective customer and his wife, she kind of wanted to get hooked up to rural water, and he wasn't too thrilled about the whole situation. And the system he was using is he would run his pump and fill up his cistern and use water like from the gutters and stuff like that to fill up the cistern and use that for his water. And so he was really proud of his system. So he took me outside and removed the cover of his cistern, and there's 3 dead snakes floating on top of the water. And so after he discussed with his wife for a few minutes, they decided to go ahead and hook up to rural water.
So once the meetings were held, the information meetings, the sign-up meetings, then the next step was to hire an engineering firm. And along the way, you had to secure the funding at the same time.
The funding came through a federal program at that time. What is rural development today was FMHA at that time. And it was from the national scale with their office in Des Moines. And they had a lot of funds available through the loan and grant program to give the people in rural Iowa an opportunity to have good quality water and the quantity of water that they needed.
At that time, the FHA really hadn't spent much time looking at bringing water to rural Iowa. Their emphasis was farmers, obviously, but ag loans and that type of thing. So it was somewhat of a new concept. The whole thing was breaking new ground. It just wasn't something that there was already a pattern for or a playbook to go by. Rural water was a new concept, and rural water in Iowa was leading all the surrounding states in the very beginning. And with that, there came that need for the funding, and it was a very interesting time for our leaders to try and figure out how to marry those available dollars and convince those lenders that these rural water systems were going to be viable.
And they had stipulations. Before they would approve a project, some of the stipulations were the fact that wherever they laid a pipeline, they needed 80% of participation. In other words, 80% of the people that lived along that pipeline had to sign up. And when you signed up, you signed up for to pay a water bill for a monthly water bill for 3 years. And if you wanted to put livestock on the rural water system, you had to determine how many gallons of water each pig drank, how many gallons of water each cow did, or every fat steer, whatever the case may be. And then you had to agree to pay that much in the monthly water bill.
So it was a many step process that they went through. They started in 1976 to actually start building and getting water. Then that took on another whole concept. You had to have a manager. You had to go out and get those easements. You had to have an attorney.
Klaus Bunce is who they picked here in Manning at the time. Klaus was, without a doubt, extremely influential and instrumental in getting and keeping our system together.
When we started, there was around 400 miles of pipe. That was what we called the original Nishnabotna system. And then the board built what they called the Boyer system. And I was on the tail end of construction for what they called the North Audubon system. But that entailed about 400 miles of pipe. We had about 900 customers, and we had 2 water treatment plants. The south Nishnabogna plant pretty much mirrored the north one. There were both 500 gallon minute plants. We had 2 wells for each of the plants, 2 filters. We had 1 booster station within the distribution system. So at that point, it was fairly small. So they ended up doing a tremendous amount of work, a tremendous amount of research, and really worked hard to get from where they were to where we are today.
Most people were pretty happy to get the water. And they knew that they could depend on nice, clean water. Everybody deserves that.
And it was always at the fingertips. You know, you just go open the tap and you had water. And you had good pressure. And that's a lot of things that people didn't have back in the day.
All I had to do was go down to the basement, turn on the valve, fall over, had water. It was a real godsend for us, for me.
I like to look back and think it's quite a milestone in 50 years. And, a lot of water went under the bridge in those 50 years. Some people were dedicated, spent a lot of time, spent a lot of effort, but I think their goal has been achieved. I think it's been a success.